SonicLAB
TV.
So here it is. This is the Arturia Origin. It's a brand new synthesizer, literally just out of the factory. This is in fact one of the early production models. We've got it for a very short period of time. I'd like to say thanks to Brian from Arbiter in the UK for getting hold of this for us. We're going to give you an overview of what it is. And to begin with, I'd like to say what it is obviously a hardware synthesizer, but its roots are firmly based in software, as Arturia are makers of software synthesizers. It's one of the few synths to make it the transition from soft to hard. The synthesizer is powered by two Tiger Shark DSPs, which are very powerful DSP units, ideally suited to real-time calculations such as virtual instruments. This enables you to get up to 32 voices from this unit. There are 4-part multi-timbrels, that's 4 slots for you to run a separate instance, if you like, of each Origin synthesizer. The unit itself, this is the desktop version, there will be a keyboard version available shortly, has wooden end cheeks, but in fact is rack mountable. You can take the wooden end cheeks off and stick it in the rack if you need to. Around the back, what you have are the audio connections, of which there are plenty. As well as the stereo out, you've got 8 auxiliary outputs, an SP-diff output, and a phones output. The phones output being controllable independently from the main volume. You also have 2 pedal inputs, one is a straight foot switch and the other is expression, and a MIDI in, out and through, and a USB connection. Currently, the USB is only really used for patch management and MIDI functions. The front panel is dominated by this large colour LCD unit here, which is flanked by 8 function buttons at the top, 8 at the bottom. Either side there's also 4 rotary encoders which have push button access as well. Most of the parameter access and programming is taken care of with this large rotary encoder, which also has a push function, arrow cursors, and the alphanumeric keypad. Each of the synthesizers can be constructed in a modular form, so you can take an oscillator from a Jupiter 8V, you can take a filter from a CS80, and you can apply another filter of the ARP 2600V. The easiest way to demonstrate this is really just to create a patch from start. So I press the preset button, I hit the new button, we'll start with a simple program, hit OK, and that gives us the basic building blocks of a simple subtracted synthesizer. All of these modules are just basically the Origin type modules, and if I wanted to change any of these, it's simply a matter of selecting it and pressing the change button, and there you can see I can choose an ARP, a CS80, a Mini Moog or a Jupiter. Let's go with a Mini Moog and let's have a look at that oscillator. Tri-saw, triangle. Let's take that Moog oscillator and put it through a different kind of filter. So we just press the change button, we can take the filter from a CS80 or a Jupiter 8. Let's put a Jupiter 8 filter on it. Have a look at that. So let's change the mode. We'll go to a full pole low pass. You can hear it's actually quite smooth. The next part of this is really the most powerful bit. This is where it gets really modular. You flip to the patch mode, and as you can see, all the modules are interconnected by these leads, if you see where. So we can actually change the routing however we like. So if we wanted to create a new module here, so we'll add a module, we'll make it an LFO, and that LFO we can then connect to the oscillator frequency modulation. But I can also patch it to, let's see, the filter frequency modulation at the same time. So I can keep adding outputs and effectively creating patch leads, virtual patch leads within the system. Aside from the multiple oscillator types, you've also got wavetable oscillator and the multiple filter types. The only other modules are envelope, CV modulator, LFO, mini mixer, ring mod, Bode shift and joy mixer. There's also a dedicated Mini Moog model in here, which is a pre-made, pre-configured Mini Moog type synthesizer based obviously on the Mini Moog. It's not quite modular synthesis in its purest form, because if you're after a particular filter type or a particular kind of envelope or some other peculiar modular gizmo, rather than build one like a lot of people do, you'll have to wait for Arturia to make you one and release it in a software update. And with up to 24 slots for you to put modules into, you can create patches that are more and more and more complex. Hardware control of modules are automatically assigned when you add them, say for oscillators and filters. In this case, the filter. If we add more than one filter module though, how do we then control them? And this is done by turning the select knob. This brings up the filter dialog and it asks you which filter you want the filter section to control. I can select one or the other, or if I want, I can have them both selected. And this works for all of these dedicated synth module control sections. That's the oscillator, the filter, the LFO and the envelope. Additionally, you can assign any one of these 8 rotary encoders to other synthesizer parameters. Let's open the output module. We'll select pan and I'll assign that to rotary encoder 1 just simply by pressing on it. And if you need more real-time control, this joystick allows you to assign parameters on the X and Y axis on up to 3 layers. However, one thing I did find was that certain controls just don't seem to be assignable. So for instance, envelope 1 slope just tells me the parameter is not assignable, and I can't actually get hold of this via the dedicated envelope module. So that's a bit disappointing. There are 3 effects units per part. So if you're running in program mode, you've got 3 effects. If you've got running in multi-timbral mode, you can have up to 12 effects units, 1 on each of the multi-timbral slots. There aren't actually that many algorithms. I'd like to have seen a few more, but unfortunately it's limited to chorus, delay, reverb, distortion and dual phaser. Apparently there are going to be more coming soon. While we're waiting for the unit to boot up, because it does take quite a while, let me play you a few more of the Arturia's sound. The sequencer on the Origin definitely deserves a special mention. It's a 32-step, 3-channel sequencer. Each of the channels can be assigned to a massive variety of synth parameters. Each of the sequencer's steps has its own dedicated rotary encoder and switch. Each of the sequences also has a swing function, so you can get it to be kind of groovy. The other thing that it does, which is also very useful, is it enables you to select patterns on the fly. So you could use this in performance mode on stage quite easily. There's also an arpeggiator, which gives you all the usual patterns and runs over 5 octaves. There's a rate adjustable from 2 bars right up to 1/256th note. There's plenty of patch memory in the Origin. Programs, you get 1,000 locations and there's 256 multis. To make things a little easier, patches are categorized and you can select them via these search 1 and search 2 terms, which helps you narrow it down. There really is so much to this synthesizer, it's almost impossible to cram everything into a review like this and keep it in under 40 minutes, say. One thing that is worth mentioning though is the Galaxy modulation system that was introduced in software in Arturia's Jupiter 8V. And it allows you to have 3 interacting LFOs to create unpredictable and very strange cyclic modulation results and route them all over the place within the synthesizer. It's very impressive that what is essentially the first release of such a complex instrument is so complete in its functionality. There is room for improvement, sure. More modules and more effects algorithms would be most welcome, but the depth and programmability of this synth is a marvel. And I've no doubt that there's more to come. The solidity of this first release gives me that confidence that Arturia will be delivering. Where I feel it's let down is with the preset sounds. They simply don't inspire. While many of the Legion onboard sounds are good and usable, there's not many that actually make you sit up and take notice. Now on a synth of this price and this complexity, that's a bit of a worry. Speaking of price, the Arturia Origin is going to set you back somewhere in the region of $3,000. That's about €2,490 or 1,899 UK pounds. Now that's a lot of money by any stretch, but there is a lot of synthesizer there.